Good morning, this is Alicia Saratani with an LPAC TV news update. Yesterday morning, the capital of Norway was rocked by two explosions, both at the heart of the government center in Oslo, killing 7 people and injuring 15. But then, on an island 20 miles northwest of the capital, shortly after the bombings occurred, a man dressed up as a police officer opened fire with an automatic weapon, killing over 80 people at a political youth camp in a second attack. Now, at first glance, the attacks on a nation like Norway don't exactly add up. That is, if you are looking at Norway alone. If you want to understand the significance of what just happened in and around Oslo, put this particular event in juxtaposition with a series of other developments now gripping the planet. Just one day prior to the attack on Norway, 2 warnings were sounded in the United States. The first was a Delta alert to 600 National Guardsmen to stand by, ready to deploy to the New York City subways in case of an attack. The second was a warning issued by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that same day to local law enforcement agencies to be on guard for any disruptions to public utility infrastructure, such as wastewater treatment facilities and power plants. And these immediate threats are unfolding in the midst of an all-out brawl behind the scenes internationally over a potential Israeli attack on Iran. But what we have at the center of an incredibly tense international backdrop is the role of Barack Obama. Yesterday, Lyndon LaRouche reiterated that for the past 2 years, all indications based on actions already taken and actions now immediately pending are that President Obama is a traitor to the United States. And in the midst of the greatest financial collapse in modern history, where there is more at stake than ever before, Obama, as a puppet of the British, is functioning just as intended, which is, as U.S. President, to be completely dysfunctional and to obfuscate a critical situation, rendering those who deny his role as such impotent at a moment when the United States must function at its highest level. Therefore, with the global financial meltdown at its height and a pattern of threats developing, as in what we see in Norway, we are now in a situation very similar to the events leading up to the 2001 September 11th U.S. terrorist attacks which to this day have yet been left unresolved, and whose perpetrators, an Anglo-Saudi faction, are still at large, which means that an attack by this same enemy is still an option. Prior to those 2001 terrorist attacks, LaRouche issued a warning which combined a pattern of security threats, a desperate global financial situation, and the character of a newly elected Bush administration, forecasting that the only way an administration like this, who had no intention of addressing the fundamental crisis facing the planet, could maintain any semblance of power, would be by staging a Reichstag fire incident which would grant them dictatorial powers. And 8 months later, that is exactly what happened. Therefore, the pattern of threats at the center of attention of the international community right now are similar to the mask of threats which led up to the 2001 attacks, which were aimed at preparing the climate and concealing the actual intentions of a coup, making our situation right now not just similar, but much more dangerous, because not only are the perpetrators of the 9/11 attacks still at large, but the financial crisis back then pales in comparison to the crisis we face today. And as a traitor to the United States, Obama's last option, when the entire transatlantic system is coming down now, is to pull a dictatorial coup, tying the United States' hands behind its back. Therefore, the impeachment of Obama and the imminent restoration of Glass-Steagall are not matters of practicality. They are both an act of self-defense for the nation and of the highest global strategic significance. Stay tuned to LPAC TV. We will have more for you throughout the day.